Hi everyone, this is Amber from Dolls of Amber, and today I'm back with a new video. Before we start though, I want to thank everyone who watched my Cupid video. I can't believe that video did so well. Because of that video, I am a YouTube partner now. It got me past 3,000 watch hours, which was the requirement to be a partner, and now I am so close into having my videos monetized. I'm hoping this video will be the cherry on top that will finally get me there. But enough about that. Today we are making a new doll custom. In my previous video, I did mention that I'm gonna try to have a new video ready for the following week. But I quickly realized that it wasn't realistic for me to have this video ready right away. I think it's very unhealthy for me to set strict deadlines on my own work, and I should take everything more slowly from now on and prioritize taking care of my mental health and well-being. And that's why this video didn't come out last week. But today we are making a special doll. I'm making Lady Dimitrescu or Alcina Dimitrescu from the Resident Evil Village game. I've always wanted to make this doll. I just think the character is so iconic and beautiful despite being a villain. So I wanted to try my hand on creating a doll of her. I'm surprised Monster High hasn't made a Skeletor doll of this character yet. It would have made sense to make a Skeletor of her since she is really iconic. And I remember her going viral years ago. But if Mattel's not gonna do it, I think I'll just do it myself. And without further ado, let's get started. For my base doll, I'm gonna use this haunted Spectra head and this Abby body that I got from my friend. All of the other doll artists that I've seen create Lady Dimitrescu before has either used a frightfully tall Monster High doll or Gulayupi. And it does make sense since Lady D is a very tall character. But I wanted my version to be very different and to also utilize the diverse G3 bodies. G3 Abby is the tallest character from G3. She's also very curvy, which makes her the perfect doll for this custom. If I had like a full set of her doll, I would have also used it for her head and her hands. But as I mentioned, I did get this from my friend, so she is incomplete. And I didn't really want to spend money on getting a new Abby doll when I already have a lot of dolls and spare parts in my stash that I can use on my projects. And as you saw, I just removed all of her hair from the inside. I just couldn't get it through her neck, so I was forced to slit her open and just remove it that way. It doesn't matter though, since I'm not gonna be rerouting this doll. I'm just gonna do a partial reroute and then glue on some webs. Now I'm gonna be doing something I have not done before, and I'm really nervous to do this. I got this idea from Chick Maxness from TikTok and Instagram. He made a tutorial on it before, but basically just tie an elastic garter on your doll's waist and leave it in boiling water for maybe 5 minutes. The PVC the body is made of will soften while the garter shrinks. This process will leave your doll's waist cinched and smaller, but the garter's texture could also transfer on the body of the doll. That's why I use felt to prevent that from happening. Discoloration can also happen from this. I'd be careful doing this on darker skinned dolls since it could lighten a bit and turn a little ashy. After removing the felt and elastic, this is what we have. I'm really happy with the results, but I did go in for another session to cinch it a little more. Now I'm just gonna sand down the sculpted hair on Abby's body. She has this on her wrists and her ankles, and we don't need that for this character, so it has to go. While I'm at it, I also decided to sand down her underwear since I'll just give her fabric ones later. I'm now switching over to sandpaper to smooth it all out. I'm using variations of grits ranging from 120 to 1200. And I'm just gonna do this for an hour and a half. God, I hate sanding. I also made sure to sand the rest of her body so the paint can adhere better later on. Once that is over, I'm left with a blank base that I can now add body mods. Abby's chest is already big, but Lady Dimitrescu has some tiggle bitties, so I had to make that accurate. For this, I'm just using some 2-part epoxy clay. If you're also gonna use this type of clay, please wear gloves. I don't really know the dangers of doing it bare hand. Personally, I never had a problem before, but just to be safe, please don't copy me. Once the implants are on, I'm just gonna smoothen the surface with my finger, wet with some water, and with the silicone sculpting tool, I'm just gonna blend the clay into her skin. I'm making sure to be very thorough with this and just checking the proportions and symmetry every once in a while. Once done, just let it set for 24 hours and it should be hard and cured the next day. I'm just gonna do some light sanding all over the clay parts, just making sure that everything is smooth. Again, just being very thorough. I removed her torso so I can sand the bottom of her chest. Once I'm done sanding, I'm gonna spray her whole body with white spray paint. This will also serve as the primer and the base color for her new skin tone. Going back to her head, we're gonna remove her factory paint with some pure acetone, and I'm just gonna clean it all off with a Q-tip. Now I'm just gonna do a final wipe with a cotton pad. And once done, I'm gonna run her head in the sink and wash off any leftover residue. Her head is still a bit stained and discolored. It's probably from the sun and her glue seepage. So to fix that, I'm just gonna spray paint her face with the same color I used for her body. While we wait for that to dry, we're gonna start doing her hair. As I mentioned before, we are gonna do wefts this time. I'm gonna take a break from rerooting. Not really, since I am gonna partially reroot her later. But yeah, we're gonna use yarn for this project, and this is the first time I'm gonna be using yarn on one of my videos. I do have experience working with yarn hair, since it is the most affordable hair fiber you can use on your dolls. The throwbacks you just saw are projects I did back in 2020, I think. But yeah, I practiced a lot of it when I was still starting out. And this part, I'm just creating the wefts itself. I'm just looping the yarn on my fingers a few times till I'm happy with the length. And I'm just tying it on a wire hanger. With my metal pet brush, I'm just slowly brushing it all out. It's better to do this in sections to thoroughly untangle it. But once done, it should look something like this. And now we can just straighten it with a flat iron. This part has always been satisfying and my favorite part in making wefts, because you can see how a regular craft yarn can turn instantly into doll hair right before your eyes. It's amazing. Now I'm just gonna glue the cut parts of the hair, and I'm gonna leave this to dry while I work on the rest of the head. Now time for the partial rerouting. I'm still gonna do the knot method for this. It's pretty much the same process with any other doll hair, but in this case we're just using yarn. I unraveled it into smaller strands, and I'm just picking this up with my rerouting tool. And like normal, I'm just gonna plug it into the head. Now I'm just gonna do this a couple more times on her hairline and also her part line. Once done, this is what it looks like. And just like with the wefts, I'm just gonna brush it all out with my pet brush. And now I'm just flat ironing it. Now to separate the part line, I opted to do this instead of gluing on the part line, since it's much more easier and it looks more natural. This will cover all of our wefts later on, so I made sure to thickly root this part. And honestly, I was really surprised with how it looks. For a moment, I was doubting my decision on using yarn instead of actual doll hair, but after seeing how full and beautiful this looks, I felt really motivated to continue working on this project. Going back to the body, we're gonna start blushing it now to make it look more natural and a bit realistic. I'm using a lot of browns, purples, and black to add depth and dimension on her body. Once done, I sprayed her body with Bosny Flat Clear to seal in the powders. And to further protect it, I'm using Liquitex Matte Varnish. Let that thoroughly dry, and then I'll spray another layer of Bosny Flat Clear on top of it to mattify it again. I left that to dry for 24 hours. I also made sure to not move her joints because she is prone to chipping. But once she is fully dry, her skin tone is finally sealed. Now onto her face. Off camera, I did spray her face with a layer of Mr. Super Clear to prep her for this face up, and now I'm just using some Pan Pastels to blush her face. to match it with her body. Now on to the sketching. I first drew on the shape of her eyes. I wanted to give her a side glance, so that's what I'm doing here. And this is what it ended up looking like. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. And now we can add more dimension with powders. For her eyeshadow, I'm using some black, just making sure to blend that really well and build that up with each layer of MSC. I darkened up her sketching a bit more, and now we can paint. For her eyes, I went for some yellow. Her eyes are actually more darker than this, but I wanted it to look like it's glowing, hence why I went for this color instead. Now I'm just outlining her eyes with some black, making sure to go slow and steady for this to avoid mistakes. Also, for anyone wondering, I'm just using nail art brushes for this. I buy the cheapest ones, and I regularly replace them whenever I wore them out. But they do work really well, you just have to take care of them to have them last longer. Now I'm just doing the lashes. Again, I'm just taking my time while doing this since I want these lashes to be perfect. Off camera, I did the other eye, and now we're moving on to her eyebrows. I wanted her right eyebrow to be slightly tilted up to give her a more sassy expression and just to give her more personality. With a salmon color, I'm just painting in her tear ducts, and with some paint similar to her skin color, I'm just drawing on some strands in her eyebrows. Now I'm just gonna add more dimension in her eyes. I'm painting on some orange on the top for a shadow, and with a lighter yellow, I'm painting that under her pupils to give it some highlights. Now for her catch lights, I'm just dotting white on her pupils. I went for smaller catch lights this time to make her look more sinister and serious. I also drew on a white line on the side of her eyes. And now we can move on to her lips. With a dark red, I'm just lining her lips, and I'm not sure why this clip is not focused. It's pretty annoying, honestly. But now I'm just filling it up, and I think I did about 2 layers of this to make it opaque. Because you can see it right now, it does need more coverage. To clean up my lines, I'm just using some white paint, and I'm just sharpening my edges. And with that, we're done with her face up. Off camera, I sprayed her face with the final layer of MSC, making sure that it is a generous amount to fully seal in the paint, and then let that dry fully. Going back to her hair, the wefts are finally dry. I'm just gonna clean up the edges to make them look more neater. And now we can finally glue it on her head. Starting at the back, I'm just using some Uhu glue to adhere the hair. I'm just gonna fill it up with the wefts that I made. Now we can brush her hair and distribute the part line here to cover up the wefts. Now I'm gonna do her hands. I'm using these Barbie Dream Besties hands, and they do match Abby's body. They're just about the right size. I've already separated the ring and the middle finger. I just used an X-Acto knife for this, and now it's time to give them a new pose. I somehow lost the footage of me dunking the hands in hot water, but basically what I did was I duct taped the fingers to point down, and then I dunked them in hot water and then in cold water to shock the plastic to give them this more elegant pose. I wanted her right hand to show off her blade-like nails, so for this I'm just using some recycled plastic packaging. I just used my X-Acto knife to cut this out, and I needed 5 of this for her right hand. I cut some slits on her fingers first so I can slid the nails in, and I'm just using some super glue to permanently bond them. This did give me a bit of an ick because it looks really painful. Rewatching this clip now does make me feel a little uncomfortable. So let's just fast forward a bit. Here is her left hand and her right hand. For her left hand, I just used my regular air dry clay nails. And now we're gonna make the blades thicker with some polygel. We're just gonna build this up on the nails. This is just to make it a bit thicker and sturdier, and to also reinforce the connection with her fingers. This was a bit tricky for me since the nails were really close together. It was a little difficult for me to get in there and smoothen everything out without getting them stuck on one another. Once I was happy with it though, I just let it fully cure in my UV lamp. To smoothen out any bumps, I just use UV gel, and I just paint that all over the nails. And again, just let that cure in the lamp. With my Dremel, I'm just gonna sand out the thicker parts and to also remove any bumps and imperfections. Now to paint the hands, I'm gonna first use a marker on the joints. This will stain it, which is a more permanent method than just using acrylic paint. And on top of that, I'm just gonna paint everything with black acrylic paint. I'm gonna do this for both hands. And at first, I wanted to keep it fully black, but later on, I did decide to paint the blades a more silvery metallic color. And then I dry brushed some red and maroons for some blood. Now for some shoes, I'm yet again using these pumps from Shadow High. I think it's from Heather Grayson. It's the same shoes I used on my Sabrina Carpenter doll, which I also made a video on, so make sure to check that out. But I'm gonna paint it a very light yellow color. I mixed some white, yellow, and brown. I think I added a tiny bit of black to mute it down a little. And with the soles, I'm just going for maroon. I just feel like red bottoms would fit really well with this character. I'm again mixing some Liquitex matte varnish with my pearlescent powders, and I'm just gonna paint that all over the shoes. Her shoes did feel a little too clean, so I decided to do some black dry brushing, mostly on the sides of the shoe, to give it some rough dimension. I sprayed the shoes with some Boston Flat Clear to mattify it, and I'm just adding more dimension with soft pastels. I used some brown and blacks for this, just to really add some rough shadows on the shoe. Off camera, I did seal them again with Boston, and I also top coated it with some Liquitex matte varnish to give it a little shine. And we're done with her shoes. And we're finally doing her dress. This is the pattern I'm working with. I'm reusing one of my patterns that I made for a Barbie doll. I'm gonna hand sew most of the top part, and for the skirt, we're gonna figure that out later. I first attached the back to the front part, and then I attached the sleeves. Now I'm just hemming the sleeves with a matching thread color, and I'm just taking my sweet time while doing all of this. Now I'm gonna sew on some darts in the front of her top. This will just help the top fit better on her body. This is what it should look like after. I'm gonna do another one on the other side, and now I'm gonna sew on the scattered piece in the front. I don't really know what this is called, but this design is present in the outfit, in the dress that she wore, so I'm making sure to have that present in my doll as well. I glued it in first, and then I'm gonna sew on top of it. Now I'm going to close up the sides of the top. I'm going to start doing so at the sleeves and work my way down to her bodice. Now I'm just turning it inside out so we can look at the top. I tried it on the doll first to see how it fits, and it looks pretty decent. I'm going to sew some snaps on the back to close it. She has this cape looking thing on the back of her top. I don't really know how I'm going to do this. In the end, I decided to split it into two, and then I sewed it on each shoulder. I wasn't able to show you the process of it, but yeah, I did make her some black underwear just so she's covered under there. Now I'm gonna do her skirt. I'm gonna hem the ends first. I did this off camera, but I did do it on my machine. Now I'm gonna gather the skirt with my machine. If you're wondering where I got this beautiful fabric, I actually got this from the thrift store. It used to be a very elegant top, which I ruined. I know, I dismantled it to harvest the fabric, but I had a feeling no one was gonna buy it. It was pretty old-fashioned, so I took it upon myself to give it a second life. One of my favorite things about this fabric is how it gathers, and it was just perfect. Perfect for this project. Now I just need to connect the top and the skirt together. It's looking really good so far. I'm really happy with how it's turning out. Now I'm gonna connect another gathered piece on the bottom. I don't really know what this is called. It's really hard to describe. But this is connected to the gathered part on the top. This is really hard to explain, guys. I'm really sorry. I'm doing a really bad job. I connected it off camera though. I guess I didn't film everything because I was really focused. I was really locked in when I was making this dress, and there were a lot of trial and errors. But as you saw, I did finish it off. I sewed it in the back and we're done with the dress. But moving on, we're doing her hat. I'm currently gluing on an aluminum wire on the brim, just so I can have it postable in the end, and to also give it some structure and support. I originally wanted to use this Draculaura Core Refresh hat. It was a little too small, but I knew I could make a better one, so that's what I'm doing here. After the glue dried, I did reinforce the wire by sewing on top of it. Basically, I am hitting two birds with one stone here because I am sewing on 2 layers of fabric, and when I flip this inside out later, we have a finished brim. Now for the cap, I'm gonna use this hat. It fits the doll really well, so I'm gonna go ahead and seam rip it and make a pattern out of it. So I needed 5 pieces of this, and I'm just gonna sew them together one by one. This is what it looks like after connecting 2 pieces together. And I'm just going to continue sewing all 5 panels till we have a finished cap. Now I'm going to connect the cap to the brim. To do that, I'm going to need to cut a circle in the middle of the brim first. I folded it 4 times and now I'm just cutting the edge. I traced the shape of the cap on top of the brim and now I'm just cutting it to size. Now I'm just checking if the cap fits or if I need to cut it some more. It was a little too tight, so I did cut some more till I'm happy with the fit. Once done, I flipped the brim inside out and I'm just adjusting the wire to shape it correctly. Now I'm gonna sew on the cap to the brim. Now I'm just gonna use this mesh tool to wrap around the cap and I'm gonna sew this in place. This is what it should look like after. This is actually my second attempt on the hat. All the footage you just saw is from the first one. The brim just ended up being too big, so I had to remake it, which of course took a lot of time to do. We're almost done. Oh my god, this video is getting really long. But now we're just doing her accessories. I'm gonna make her some pearl earrings first. I'm just using some UV top gel to bond the pearl bead on the eye pin. I'm gonna leave that on my UV lamp for a few minutes. Once done, I'm just gonna loop it into these earring studs. Close it up and try it on the doll. One detail that I forgot about the dress is the black roses on the side. I have these pink roses that I painted black and I'm just gonna sew it in place. I'm gonna sew it in there a few more times till I know it's secure enough. Now I'm just making her necklace. I'm using these pearly beads and I'm just threading that through my nylon thread. The closest I have to the pendant she's wearing is this butterfly earring. I just bended the earring stud to make a loop and then I threaded it in the necklace. Fun fact, it's the same charm I used on my Zombie Gaga doll. I did a second shorter one. Now I'm just gonna tie them on her neck. Unfortunately, they're not gonna be removable. Finally, we get to style her hair. This was actually really difficult because I already cut her hair short. So curling her hair was a little challenging for me. But first, I am brushing her hair with a pet brush just to get the tangles out. I sprayed her hair with some water just so it's easier to manage. I'm just gonna brush back this side of her hair. And I'm just gonna sew this in place. To curl her hair, I'm using a metal straw and I'm gonna run my mini flat iron on it. And I'm just gonna do this all throughout the hair. Once done, I'm gonna load her hair with crazy amounts of hairspray to protect it and to preserve the hairstyle. And I guess we're done. Let's look at her glamour shots, shall we? Thank you so much for watching this video. I had so much fun making this doll. Let me know what you guys think about my Lady Dimitrescu doll down below. If you're interested in purchasing her, she is available for sale after uploading this video. It's my mom's birthday in a couple of days, so we'll be really grateful if someone buys her right away. If you want to see more from me, make sure to subscribe. You can also follow me on my other social medias. I'll have them listed down below. This video is already really long, so I'm just gonna end it here. Thank you again for watching. You guys have a great time. I'll see you in my next one.